Tonight, serious new questions about Trump's strategy, or lack thereof, in Iran. Today, for the first time, Trump calling for Iran's, quote, unconditional surrender. As the New York Times reports, it's yet another shift in the goals of the U.S. military actions, one that could pretend a much longer conflict. Also today, the Washington Post reporting the cancellation of an Army exercise is fueling speculation within the Defense Department that soldiers specializing in ground combat and a range of other missions may be sent to the Middle East. Days ago, Trump pointedly declining to rule out sending U.S. troops, quote, if necessary. Pete Hegseth also asked about it.
Are there currently any American boots on the ground in Iran?
No, but we're not going to go into the exercise of what we will or will not do.
Sources telling MS Now the war is now costing the U.S. $1 billion per day. For context, the war in Afghanistan costs $300 million a day. So much for Trump stopping inflation. Meanwhile, Trump asked bluntly whether Americans should fear Iranian retaliatory strikes in the United States. His answer, quote, I guess, adding, quote, but I think they're worried about that all the time. We think about it all the time. We plan for it. But yeah, you know, we expect some things. Like I said, some people will die. When you go to war, some people will die. All this as Trump becomes the first modern president to take the United States to war without public support. New polling shows just 44% support for the war in Iran, compared to 51% support for Clinton's actions in Kosovo, 53% for Reagan's mission in Grenada, 83% for H.W. Bush's war in Iraq, and 90% for W. Bush's war in Afghanistan. Joining me now to discuss is Congressman Seth Moulton, Democrat from Massachusetts. He is a member of the House Armed Services Committee and a Marine Corps of Combat veteran who served multiple tours in Iraq. Congressman, I'm going to start with this. I usually avoid the what's the most terrible thing that Donald Trump has done this week. But what is your response as a veteran, as an American citizen, to the president of the United States when asked if people could die? He shrugs his shoulders and says, yeah, I guess.
Donald Trump has never respected the troops. Never. I mean, not when he dodged the draft, making up a sore foot to avoid going to Vietnam, and understandably sending someone in his place. It's not like there was just an empty seat. Someone went in his place. To when he called John McCain a loser for getting captured, an American hero. His own chief of staff, Marine John Kelly, documented that he called troops losers for signing up and suckers for getting killed.
Pam Bondi coming before the committee. When is Howard Lutnick coming before the committee? Because they are both still to be determined. And what do you hope to learn from some of these other individuals? I mean, Catherine Romo, for example, is someone who literally lost her job because of the Epstein files, because of the kinds of communication that popped up in there. According to reports, Bill Gates, he apologized to his staff, given what happened in the Epstein files. And I don't even need to go to the things that his ex-wife has suggested and said about his association. So what are you all hoping to learn?
Well, first, I mean, the fact that we were able to win a subpoena to get the Attorney General of Donald Trump in front of us is huge. And I want to thank the entire committee, all of our members of Oversight Democrats that were united. We were able to pull over a handful of Republicans to join us to subpoena the Attorney General specifically on the Epstein file. So all of these questions that we have around the documents, why 50% of the files are still missing, and this broader investigation, that hearing is going to be critical, and we look forward to it. A date has not been set. We're hopeful it's set soon. Same with Howard Lutnick, someone that's been lying through his teeth about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and of course is now the Commerce Secretary to Donald Trump. How convenient. So those two depositions have not been set, but we expect them to have dates hopefully in the next week. As it relates to the other folks coming forward, look, on that list, you're talking about Epstein's personal assistant, Epstein's former lawyer, Epstein's former personal accountant. These are people that have intimate knowledge about where the money came in, who was actually going in and out of these spaces in Epstein's different homes, perhaps more information about what was actually going on at Mar-a-Lago with the trafficking of women and girls. through and to Jeffrey Epstein. And so those are critical pieces of this investigation. There are, of course, others on there, that folks that we want to speak to, anyone that we've said from day one, we don't care what party you're in. If you know Jeffrey Epstein or have information, we want to talk to you. So we look forward to all of these depositions.
Congressman, the drip that we've seen from the DOJ, of course, is frustrating as it relates to your investigation and your effort. One cannot imagine what it means for these survivors. Our colleague Lisa Rubin spoke to a few of them today. This is part of what she wrote. As DOJ releases more Epstein documents, survivors brace for impact. Again, every time files are released, it's like survivors are just holding on, waiting. It feels almost deliberate. Why can't we just have one comprehensive release of all the files so we don't have to go through this piecemeal? Haven't they put us through enough? That's Epstein survivor Marina Lacerda. Have you heard from the survivors about what the sort of latest iteration from DOJ means to them, the impact it's having on them?
I have. I'm in regular contact with survivors directly. I'll just say that it's been just disgusting and horrific what this process has been for them. They're constantly re-traumatized because how the DOJ has handled these releases. And it's not just been the inconsistency. They have blatantly included the names of survivors, the photos of survivors, completely exposed them to the public. And the way they've been so careless has re-traumatized survivors, has put them and their families in danger. And so the protection of them is so important. It's just so infuriating that the White House is more interested in protecting the billionaire men, those that actually were the co-conspirators, names of whom some we can't even see or access yet, and not protect these women who, in some cases, were girls and minors in these photos and in these instances. And so it's hard to see. We're just grateful how strong they remain, but it's outrageous. And
yeah, we've been talking about these shifting justifications depending on which administration official you talk to, and the comment from Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Here is how he framed things when speaking to reporters yesterday, a message, by the way, House Speaker Mike Johnson then echoed a short time later.
There absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. And we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded, because the Department of War assessed that if we did that, if we waited for them to hit us first after they were attacked, and by someone else, Israel attacked them, they hit us first, and we waited for them to hit us, we would suffer more casualties and more deaths. We went proactively in a defensive way to prevent them from inflicting higher damage. Had we not done so, there would have been hearings on Capitol Hill about how we knew that this was going to happen, and we didn't act preemptively to prevent more casualties and more loss of life.
They had to evaluate the threats to the U.S., to our troops, to our installations, to our assets in the region and beyond. And they determined, because of the exquisite intelligence that we had, that if Israel fired upon Iran and took action against Iran to take out the missiles, then they would have immediately retaliated against U.S. personnel and assets. We have troops in harm's way, and we have many Americans in the region, and that was of great concern. If we had waited for all of those eventualities to take place, the consequences of inaction on our part could have been devastating. We don't know at what magnitude, but you can assume, because it is common sense, that if Iran had begun to fire all of their missile arsenal, short and mid-range missiles, at our personnel and our assets and our installations, we would have suffered staggering losses.
I mean, they can't
Willie,
be serious.
I recognize that look in their eyes. That was a look that I would have when I was in college and my professor was asking me my take on the Odyssey. And I said, exquisite writing. And then I would ramble. Those were two of the stupidest answers I've ever heard in my life.
I'm embarrassed.
Marco Rubio just said of Israel that they were the preeminent threat. The preeminent threat was Israel attacking Iran. So we had to attack Iran. Hey, sir, why did you walk into the bar and punch the bartender in the face? Because my friend was about to do that. So I had to punch him because I knew after my friend punched him, he was going to. This makes no sense. It certainly makes no sense geopolitically. It's just stupid. If this is, I can't imagine justifications for the war being stupid. They were doing much better just saying they're the epicenter of terror since 1979. They had to be taken out. But this is getting insane now.
Yeah.
It is.
Critics argue that Mike Johnson is losing control of his position, both politically and within the own party. According to this view, much of the authority within the Republican causes has shifted toward Donald Trump, while some Republican lawmakers have also begun openly challenging leadership decisions. At the same time, critics claim that public frustration over issues such as foreign policy and government transparency has contributed to growing pressure on congressional leadership. Sub-commentators compare the current situation to earlier wars, such as the war in Afghanistan and Iraq war. When those conflicts began, they initially had significant public support in the United States, including backing from members of both major political parties. Critics say that current situation is different because they believe there is far less public consensus supporting military action, which makes it more politically difficult for leaders to maintain unity. Inside Congress, there have also been moments where individual lawmakers have taken a more prominent role in shaping debate or legislative action. Figures such as Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna have at times worked across party lines on certain issues, which some observers say highlights divisions with the chamber. Critics contrast Johnson's leadership with previous speakers such as Nancy Pelosi, Paul Ryan, and Kevin McCarthy. While those leaders face their own controversies and internal conflicts, analysts say they still manage to exercise clearer control over the legislative agenda. In this critique, Johnson is portrayed as struggling to assert similar authority within the House.